Hello and welcome back. So now in this video we will add the first state to our enemy, which is the guarding. So first of all, right here inside this header, which is enemy things, we will create a public nav mesh agent because we need to assign the nav mesh agent. So let's name this as enemy agent. Save the script, go back, and let me minimize all of that. Let's add the enemy script there. As you can see, it needs the nav mesh agent, so we will assign the nav mesh agent, and let's move this player in there. Okay, this enemy character, let's move it inside there, and he will guard from here to there. Okay, so we will just add that, but for now get back right here in the script, and let's remove the comments from this enemy guarding variable. And right here we will say public game object. This game object will be an array, and we will name this as walk points, so we can add different walk points to our enemy. For example, we can add 2 walk points, 4 walk points, 6 or 7 or 8, and how many walk points you want to add. Okay, so we will create a walk point game object array, and then we will create an integer by the name of current enemy position, because we need the current enemy position. And let's just simply for now set this to 0, and then create a public float, and let's name this as enemy speed. After this we will create another float, and let's name this as walking point radius, and it will be equals to 2 by default. And after this, right down below in the last header, which is enemy mood or situation, if you say, okay, right here we will create a public float, and let's name this as vision radius. So this will be basically the sight range for the enemy, so when the enemy see the player, then he will start chasing the player. Okay, so this variable is for that purpose. And then the next public float will be the shooting radius, and basically we will assign the shooting radius to the enemy, so when the player comes in the shooting radius, then the enemy will start shooting the player. Okay, he will stop chasing or guarding, he will start shooting the player. Okay, and after that let's add a public pool, and let's name this as player in vision, or you can actually make the p small, so player in vision radius, and this will be a bool which we will make true or false. So if the player is in the vision radius, or you can say the vision side, okay, he spotted the player, then we will set this to true, else it will be just simply false. Okay, now the next bool will be the player in shooting radius. So as you know, it will be by default false, but if the player comes in the shooting range, then we will set this to true, and then the enemy can start shooting the player. Right here, let's create a update function, and inside this update function, as you know that this update function is called once per frame. So in the update function we will be continuously checking for the vision radius or range, and the shooting radius or range, whatever you want to call it. Okay, so we will be continuously checking for that, and when the player come in the shooting range or in the vision range, then the player will start pursuing or chasing the player, or if the player is in the shooting range, then he will start shooting the player. Okay, so we will check that right here in the update. So first of all, right here we will say player in radius, in vision radius. Okay, physics dot check sphere. There is not much to tell about this physics dot check sphere, but using this we can just search for the player. Okay, but first of all we need player position. Okay, we need his transform, our player transform. So for that, right here we will create a wake function, and in here we will say player body, and this will be equals to game object dot find, and we want to find the player transform. Okay, so now it will check the player transform, and right here let's create a public transform, and let's name this as player body. Okay, and we need to assign the player to this player body, and also right here we will say enemy agent get component, and in here we will type name mesh agent, and that's it. Now right here inside this physics.checksphere we will use our position as a center, so we will say transform dot position, and then after this we will say vision radius, and then we need a player layer mask right here. So for that, in the enemy things we will create a public layer mask, and let's name this as player layer. Okay, so we will now use that player layer as a layer mask, and then we want to also check if the player is in shooting range, so we will say player in shooting radius or range, and then we will say physics dot check sphere, and again let's take the transform dot position as a center, and then we will say shooting range, and then the layer mask will be the player layer mask. Okay, after this we simply want to check for the different states, or you can say situations. So if the player is not in the vision radius, and also if he is not in the shooting radius, so player shooting radius, so if he is not, then we will call a function which will be by the name guard. Okay, so now right down below this update we will say void guard, and actually let's just make this private, and now in here we will type a code for our guarding state, and as I told you we will guard between specific points. Okay, we will assign that points to our enemy, and as you know, for that we have created our walk point array right there. So in here we will first of all check if the enemy walk point position and also the enemy current position is less than the walking point radius. Okay, this walking point radius, then we want to move the player to another walk point. So for that we will simply say vector3 dot distance, and we will say walk points. So if the current enemy position, so we will say dot transform dot position, and also the transform dot position is less than the walking point radius, then we will check or search for another walk point and we will redirect the enemy to that walk point. Okay, so he will then walk to that point. So let me show you right here. For example, if this is our enemy, okay, and there is one walk point right here and one walk point right here. So now if the enemy reaches this walk point, then we will check the enemy position and also the walk point position. So if that is less than the walking point radius, then we will check in our surrounding for another walk point. So as you can see, when the enemy find this walk point, then he will be simply redirected to this walk point, and when he reaches this one, we will search for another one and it will find this walk point then, so the enemy will then redirect to this walk point, and in that case the enemy can move between these two walk points again and again. And for example, if you want to add some other walk points, so you can add 4 walk points, and then if he reaches this one, then it will search for a random walk point between these two 4, and if he finds this walk point, or for example this walk point, so he will be redirected to that walk point. Okay, now let me close that, and right here we will say current enemy position, and that will be equals to random dot range, and we will first pass a 0, and then we will pass the walk points dot length, so it will search between the walk points. Okay, it will not just randomly select any place. Okay, it will only select that walk point which we created for that enemy. So now right here we will check if the current enemy position is now becomes greater than the walk points dot length. Then what we want to do, we will set the current enemy position to 0, and then after this main if condition, we will say transform dot position equals to vector 3 dot move towards. Now we want to move the player to that walk point which is now found, as I told you in the visual way on the paint. Okay, so he has search and find a different walk point. Now we just simply want to redirect the enemy to that walk point. So we will say vector 3 dot move towards transform dot position. We will pass the transform dot position and then the walk point. So we'll say current enemy position dot transform dot position, and then we want to move the enemy according to each frame. So we will use time dot delta time, and we will multiply that by the enemy speed. Okay, and after this we want to rotate the player facing towards that walk point. Let me explain it to you. For example, if here is the one walk point and here is the second one, and now here is the enemy and he is facing towards this position, okay, this walk point, so he will simply walk towards this point. Now we don't want the player to just move in this position. Okay, we want to rotate the player to this side, okay, to this walk point. So now when he reaches here, he will turn his face like that, and now he will be facing towards this walk point and he will walk to this point. Now when he reaches here, he will just change his facing, and now he will come to this walk point. And let me explain to you this in the Unity as well. So for example, if here is a one walk point and then one walk point is right there, then Let's change it. The enemy facing. Okay, now he is facing right there. Okay, so now if the enemy move to that walk point, then we don't want the enemy to just simply come like this in the backward direction. Okay, we don't want him to do that. So when he reaches that walk point, then we want to change the facing of the enemy to the other walk point, and he will move like that to that walk point. Okay, so we want to change the facing of the enemy like that. Okay, now let's leave the facing towards that. Now let's get back to the script, and we can add a comment right here for this. So we name this as changing enemy facing. Okay, now so transform dot look at, I think the A is capital not here, so look at, and we want to look to that walk point, so we will say walk point current enemy position dot transform dot position. So now the enemy will change the facing according to different walk points. Change this I to small, and let me fix this as well. It is distance, we just typed that incorrectly, so let's correct the distance spelling there. Okay, now let's just save the script, get back to the Unity, and as you can see right here we have all of the variables now. So let's select the player layer right there, and let's assign the player as well. And guys, remove this animator from this way, so we can actually just copy the component and paste that component as new right here, and let's select none for the controller for now, and let me delete that from there. Okay, now you can select the different walk points for this enemy, so we will select two walk points. Now we need to assign that two walk points right here. So what we will do, let's create an empty game object. Okay, let me just move it down below somewhere right there, and let's name this as walk points, and inside this game object we will create a walk point for this. So let's just create an empty game object first, and let's name this as enemy walk point. Okay, this enemy walk point, and now let's duplicate that one. So this enemy has two walk points. Let me move them down below somewhere right there. It moves, man. Let me just create one walk point right here. Oops. Let me select both of them and reset their transformer. Let me move them right here. Make the first walk point right there. Okay, and let's select the second walk point and move it right there. If we click on this enemy, okay, first of all, drag and drop this inside this walk points. Okay, so we have a clear hierarchy then. Okay, because we will have many walk points for different enemies, so we just want to hide them. Now let's move this walk point right here. Where is the second one? It is right there. Okay, click on the enemy. Let's add these two walk points to the enemy. Let's make the enemy speed as 1.3. Make the vision radius 11 and shooting radius 15. Okay, and before testing, let's just select all of the area again. Okay, where we want our enemy to move, so we will select all of this area. Let me select these all objects. Okay, all of the roads, and this inner things. Okay, and then click on this navigation, click on bake, and click on this bake. Okay, now I think it is baked now, and let's change the layer to surface. You can select your own ground and the terrain and just simply bake it out. Okay, or else it will show an error. Focus upon the enemy. Okay, and let me see the enemy walk points again. As you can see, the walk points are here and there. Let's select the walk point 1. Okay, now, and let's see where is it. Let's focus on the walk point. Okay, move it to the ground because we have the nav mesh on this ground. Now let's move it down below. Let's move it to the surface area. Okay, like that. Now we can move this right there. Okay, make sure that your walk point is on the surface like this, because we bake the surface. Okay, we don't bake this area, this open environment, neither the sky. We baked this area, so make sure that your walk point is on the surface. Let me delete the other one, and now we have this walk point set. Let me just bring this walk point there first of all, and now let's duplicate it. Let's move the duplicate one somewhere right there. Okay, and then click on the enemy. Now assign the first one again and second walk point. And guys, also add a mesh renderer to this enemy. Okay, and let's move that there. So after all of this, now let's play the game and see how does it looks. Okay, it shows that failed to create agent because there is no valid nav mesh, and the enemy just disappeared from there. So there is a problem with our baking. Okay, what we need to do is to now select all of this area again. Okay, let me select it from there. Let's select object 1, object 2, select this all area. Okay, and if you are using some other map, then select your own floor. Okay, your own workable area. Okay, for example, if you have roads, if you have grass ground or any ground, okay, select all of that area, change this to surface, and now again go inside navigation. Okay, you can leave the step height as 0 and everything similar to mine. Okay, but now this time you need to click on this object and activate the navigation static, and then this one, generate off mesh links. Okay, click on that as well and make sure that the navigation area is set to walkable. Now click on back again and click on bake. Okay, Just to make sure that it is big, I will just bake it 3 times now. And now let me just save this. Let's remove that error from there. Let's focus up on this now. And you can actually bake your player as well. Okay, now if we click on play button now, you will notice that now our enemy is walking towards the point. As you can see, he is walking towards the point. Let him just complete that round. Okay, he is walking. And now he walked to that point. Now he just searched for a random point, and now he finds this first point. Now he will approach that point. You will notice now he is walking towards that point. Now you will notice when he reaches there, okay, there was the point, I guess, and now when he reaches there, he finds the other point. Now let's walk towards the player. Okay, as you can see, now he stops. And if we check the enemy, let me go in the inspector. Now as you can see, player is in vision and also is in shooting range. Because we set the vision radius to 11 and shooting radius to 15, so that's why now he is stopped and he is actually now attacking us. As you can see, these both are now tick. Okay, so he is attacking us, but we don't have any function for the attacking or for the chasing, so that's why he just stopped right there. And if you notice, he is inside the ground. We don't want that. We want him to be on the ground like our player. This video is already going to be a really long video, but let's just fix the grounding area, and then in the next video we will continue our work on the enemy. Okay, we will add the chasing, you can say the pursuing, and also the shooting. So first of all, let me check out the player. As you can see, this player game object is right there, and this body object is a little bit down below. Now if we focus right here, okay, the body is a bit above and the enemy is down below. So just simply drag and drop this out. Okay, now click on this enemy and let's move it above to this middle point of the enemy. Now let's drag and drop that again. Now as you can see, it is above and that one is down below. And also let's check the capsule collider. Okay, let me just do this. Now if you play the game, I don't think so anything will happen. Okay, he is still inside the ground. So guys, let's just leave this for now. Okay, we will solve this and fix this in the next video because this video is already too long. But now, as you know, our player can walk between different walk points. You can add more walk points, for example 4 walk points or 5 walk points if you want. But for this enemy, I myself just want 2 walk points, one right there and one there. Okay, and make sure that the walk points are on the ground, and make sure that wherever you want the enemy or the player to walk, make sure that you pick it and make sure that you take these both. Okay, this navigation status static and this generate off mesh links, and then click on bake. Okay, I hope you now understand how to do this everything, and if you have any questions, feel free to ask me. With this done, see you guys in the next video.